When is a bike dealer not a bike dealer? When it's owned by a car dealership. We've all had them. Our favorite dealer or bike shop. You know, we went for our bike stuff needs, whether for part, new helmet, gloves, any other equipment. Our local place had them, and they had something else too. Helpful staff that actually rode bikes, and have for many years. They had great knowledge and brought their passion with them every day. Going there was a fun bike trip to your favorite hangout. You'd meet other riders. They had stories and tips for the younger ones. Some good, some not so good. But we all had the same sense of community, you could call it. Oh, and this was years before the internet and mobile phones. Could you imagine what it would have been like back then to have the communication of today's ability? Hell, just look at all the groups out there on YouTube.
Oh man, we can't be doing all this sitting around stuff when it's this hot.
Yeah, never mind. But let's get back to the dealerships. Back in the day, they had some of the best staff and equipment. It kept things up to date for you. And then something happened. Something seemed to change, it felt like overnight. Possibly watching BMW adding motorcycles to their car dealerships in 2006, another major manufacturer decided to try it in North America. And what's really strange is that they'd given up the idea in their own country, but decided to give it a go anyways. The idea was for one-stop shopping of all their products that they made. And so, Honda brought the idea of powerhouses to North America in 2008. From cars to motorcycles, power equipment, marine, ATVs, lawnmowers, anything else you wanted, Honda, all under one gigantic roof, except the jet. This decision, unfortunately, closed a lot of smaller dealers who didn't know what to add cars to their lineups or become an exclusive brand. In particular, it closed one of Ontario's largest and most well-known dealers, Cycle World. The Cycle World of today is a used bike shop that has no connection to the other one. So by opening dealerships that sold cars and bikes, it initially led to confusion by the customer. Were bike dealers adding car sales, or were car sales adding bikes? As it turned out, car dealers were adding bikes, building a whole new larger building because of it. And this led to interesting fact number one: buying power. Car dealers traditionally have massive buying power with their lines of credit from the manufacturer and or banks, where the local smaller family-owned dealerships were limited on their buying power against these car giants. And that led us to interesting fact number two. As riders, who likes a car dealer?
Of us!
Especially after they've taken over your favorite toy room and all its toys.
Montana.
You see, the problem was a forced shift in mindset. For example, when was the last time you went down to your local car dealership and made a coffee and sat down with the salesman and just chatted with the possible new models coming out? Oh, and did you see the latest floor mats? And how about those roof racks? Real exciting stuff. Not, even more not, for the person sitting across from you. You see, they're what's called a salesperson, a commissioned salesperson, or as they like to be called today, sales associates. And if you're not buying from them in the next hour, you're literally costing them money. And that was the problem. The manufacturers thought that dealers could breed hybrid salespeople that knew both bikes and cars. Just convert their current car people into bike people, just like adding another product. Simple, right?
An undead monkey.
They just had one glaring problem. None of them rode motorcycles. Or the ones that did, rode so long ago, they gave it up. And they were way behind on the current models of competition bikes and other manufacturers, aka no new knowledge. They were just happy driving their demo cars from the dealership. Insurance covers the car, by the way, but I won't get into that because that's a whole other video. So the customer, aka bike enthusiast, quickly found out that the sales associate didn't have the time of day for them unless they were buying now. Worst of all was their product knowledge. And could you blame them? They weren't interested in learning about the product because they didn't ride. And then some of them actually saw motorcycle customers as crazy people because riding a motorcycle was dangerous. The big drawback was car salespeople were also stuck under the way of selling cars, the car way.
Why do you salesmen keep saying hi to me? That's just how it is.
And most likely, it was straight to price negotiations.
Aha! So we've established my proposal as sound in principle, now we're just haggling over price.
So what you end up with is not a very helpful person or enthusiast, but rather a price negotiator that wanted to finance you right away. It's just priorities. Why would they help you and your son about a first dirt bike for hours? When the customers come back in from a day ago with a car deal offer, commission sales, choice is easy. Serve the customer that has the highest potential of return. So what could the customer do? As the mega car dealers had the buying power and the bikes were always in stock, and even the rare ones. And the smaller dealers did not always have stock. Customers kind of felt stuck. They could buy from the family-owned ones for parts and service and try to help out that way, but then they soon discovered that the big powerhouses stayed open way later, and service and parts normally stayed open later as well, as they were attached to a car dealership, usually staying open until 9 p.m. most nights. How did the car bike dealer stay open so late, especially for sales? Smaller family dealers closed at 6 p.m. and they usually had one late night a week, while the car dealers ran a different ship, as it were.
Get back on your bloomin' cockroaches!
What they had was a sales force that was literally working long hours for free, known as commission sales. That thing I talked about earlier. Most car dealers, I'd say over 90%, pay their staff on what's called draw against commission, where they pay you a small draw and you owe that back when every payday comes. But with these type of commission sales, it causes a vicious cycle. It puts huge pressure on the salesperson to sell more and above what he's being paid back in the draw, because he owes that back.
You want us to pay you?
Or they owe it back. If you don't sell, they simply let you go and write off the money that they've paid you as a training cost. And this free labor force is great for car dealers, but unfortunately causes the highest turnover of any job industry out there.
Run!
But how did the smaller single-line dealers keep alive against these powerhouses? Well, some added other lines to become what we call multi-line dealers, selling different brands under one roof, giving the customer more choice. Others relied on the fact that they had superior help and great staff that were riders and knew their stuff, and they advertised that knowledge. Well, over time, an interesting thing started to happen. The powerhouses started to close their bike sides, or separate them from their buildings altogether. And as these new dealerships popped up, they went multi-line, trying to sell more than just a single line of motorcycles. But remember, they were still owned by car dealerships. Some did seek out real motorcycle staff to be added to their stores, as some employees might have been looking to make a change or get a closer location. And this led to interesting fact number 3. How did Honda take most of their old powerhouse dealers closing or becoming a multi-line dealer? Well, it looks like Honda didn't mind much at all, as a brand name was still out there and still at dealerships, and they were still relatively number one year after year. So was this the end of the powerhouse experiment? A few, very few, still exist here in Ontario. 3 at the last count, still selling right beside car dealerships in the showroom. But what's still an issue is here is there's these new multi-line dealers, the fact that car dealers still run them.
Savvy.
So they could keep a close eye on how they should be run. And the car people still don't get it.
You don't want to be doing that. No, I really think I do.
Some dealers typically do not want to carry much of anything accessory-wise, as they constantly saw them in the books as huge continuing costs that grew old and didn't sell.
Unity. 60.
But for the accessories not selling, I blame the internet a bit, as huge online sales sites popped up offering deals at a much lower price, hoping to move their product in bulk with much smaller overhead costs. And they did. These big bike dealers and even smaller family-owned bike dealerships were constantly being showroomed for a fit of a helmet or a jacket, and a customer promptly then left to go order it online, where the wonders of next-day shipping fed the demand for every single color and size available. So courtesy of our own clicking habits, these auto car bike dealers saw no huge value in having huge stocks of accessories. And so just like in any market, someone came along to fill in the need. Brand new accessory stores quickly filled this gap by opening giant stores specific to your riding needs. They just carried accessories and did not need to carry bikes. But back to car dealerships owning bike dealerships. You see, they still had one nagging problem. It was how they measured performance and sales.
Is the jar of dirt going to help?
They could only measure it against the car side numbers because that's all they knew. They wanted to run it like a car dealership, and so they expected car dealership results.
What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And this was never going to happen, mainly because of the glaring fact that bike sales are seasonal, with only 6 to 8 months of sales possible here in Canada, and waiting all winter for a bike sale on layaway to finally be completed in spring. This timeline did not impress them at all. They were used to selling winter tires and rims during the winter season. Gave them big bucks. Once again they tried, but could not compare the car side to motorcycles. And it was worse than comparing apples to, say, how well a fish climbs a tree. But then something else really happened. The smaller car dealerships suddenly saw a much larger armada on the horizon. Turns out large groups of dealerships were taking shape and forming and taking over. These huge groups were privately owned, and some were even publicly traded on the stock market and had even larger buying power, and swallowed up the smaller independent car dealers and moved on to the next ones, forming giant groups under one name, one control. But the real sad part is they had none, zero interest at all in bike shops being attached to their dealer acquisitions. So now we started to see a trend of those massive groups closing or converting these bike shops back into dealerships that they were focusing on their core automotive needs. They would see and hear about another bike shop closing down and the staff being scattered to the wind.
Any particular reason why my ship is gone?
The ship. We're on the ship.
Hoping to find work in the ever-shrinking motorcycle job market. But how did the smaller independent bike shops hold out with all these car dealers closing around them? Actually, timing couldn't have been better. Well, courtesy of COVID. With all the travel stopping and the lockdowns were everywhere, there was only one perfect social distance recreation left to do. Ride your bike. Yeah! Or even better, buy yourself a new one with all that saved up money, since you weren't using it for anything else.
Are you suggesting we throw money at the problem? Precisely.
And the numbers took off. Dealers sold out of everything, everywhere. Bikes, dirt bikes, a great starter bike to get the kids outdoors. ATVs were gone, watercraft, you name it, everything. Showrooms were literally empty by last fall, and there was much rejoicing from the dealers that stayed open, by appointment only, of course. They all reported they had their best years ever. Then, suddenly, as fast as the party started, it was over, just like that. As the waves of buying not only cleared out the showrooms, they cleared out the manufacturer. You see, there was no summer production for the coming year. So manufacturers shut down their plants worldwide. Shipping stopped, parts stopped, everything just stopped as we kept riding. And like any good party in the kitchen, the fridge was now empty. So this now could leave the smaller bike dealers with two possible business decisions. One, go out on top and cash out and retire, since the younger family members didn't want to take on the challenge. Or two, stay the course and see what 2021 brings and hope the supply will return. But if we just step back a little and look to the east to see what the manufacturers are predicting for us, as they're normally about 10 years ahead of us, we also have to ask ourselves one thing. How long can they keep going making bikes when younger riders are not taking up the reins? You see, we're in an industry, not just a hobby. And even with the sales going up, the industry was still going down by 10%. Can you guess the only sector of the industry that was up? Off-road. That's right. And why wouldn't it? There's a lot of land out there. And it's a fun way to start. I even started on the dirt back in never mind. There's no cars to worry about. You get run over, nothing like that. No insurance issues. You just need a small one to ride on Crown land or government land here in Canada. Plus, there are now off-road clubs that even offer storage on site for your bikes and equipment. Just show up and ride. Some are even offering rentals now. Imagine that. Head out on the trails, enjoy your weekend, and head home. What could be simpler? Sounds perfect, doesn't it? And that's what I feel the manufacturers are seeing as well. This just might give them the easy exit. Exit? From what? From street bikes, as it were. Let's say by 2029. You see, if everybody is being off on the dirt and trails free that way, it leaves the roads free for the autonomous cars to take over and take us where we want to go. But don't worry, you'll still be able to enjoy your street bike just on a closed course or in an entertainment center. They call them racetracks. So now where will this leave the bike dealer of today, you ask? The one that survived? Well, hear me out. Some will pivot into becoming service centers where they will pick up your bike or go to your location to where you work or wherever your bike is. They won't have to worry about selling anymore because the manufacturer will be selling direct. Click and buy. Kind of like Tesla. Or more likely, a little bit down the road, click and subscribe to your favorite brand.
Everybody should be in retail, and everybody should figure out how to do subscription.
Are there businesses out there that you think should be thinking about subscription?
All of them.
And use any bike in your subscription level, either off-road or at an entertainment center of your choice. Maybe call it Disneyland. For us, for riders, as ownership becomes a thing of the past. But don't hate on this idea just yet.
I love those moments. I like to wave at them as they pass by.
It's a few years off. But don't just take my word for it. If you want to see how quickly change is coming, watch your favorite manufacturer and see what models they drop each year and which ones they add. And I bet you 5 to 1, there'll be more dirt and off-road than on-road bikes. But in the meantime, keep riding and stop in at your local favorite bike shop and bring them a coffee. Just keep supporting the businesses that support and take part in the riding community. Oh, and when you get there, tell them RideThis sent you.
Take out me, Harley Joe.
And I'll see you out there. Ride safe.